are some of the most vulnerable people in society in need of the greatest care.
We have been told he doesn't belong to us, he is not our son.
But thousands of those with a severe learning disability and autism are being failed.
They were making me institutionalised.
Locked in hospitals miles from home that they can't leave, even when they're no longer ill.
3, 4, 5 people would jump on him and restrain him and then put him into seclusion.
It is barbaric, it's Victorian, and it's time it ended.
This is the story of an unseen, unheard generation trapped in care.
Happy birthday to you!
Tony is 41. He has profound learning disabilities and autism.
Happy birthday to you!
And he's celebrated his last 17 birthdays in a secure hospital almost 100 miles from his parents' home in Brighton.
Thank you for my cards. Thank you very much, everyone.
We've protected his identity because he's been sectioned under the Mental Health Act, and his parents can't give us permission to identify him, even though they'd like to.
And that's a happy picture, look, when he's sitting eating his dinner when he was young.
That's at home.
He went into residential care when his parents, worried about what would happen to him as they got older, asked for help. He was only meant to stay 9 months before moving into a home in the community, but he's been trapped ever since. Roy and Pam say that during his first 10 years in the hospital, he was regularly restrained, sedated and received injuries, including a broken arm they were told he sustained in a fall.
He had wrist burns, he had black eyes.
His fingers were black and blue, weren't they?
He had his hands trod on. He was being held down, face down, with about 8 or 9 people. We actually see them do it.
We witnessed that.
We witnessed one of them holding him down prone.
Following the incidents, Tony was moved to his own annex, but Roy and Pam say he's sometimes isolated and that the years have taken their toll.
He's deteriorated a lot. He doesn't do the same things he used to do, does he? I mean, when we used to go down there in other places, he used to say to Pam, "You've got a nice dress on, I like your hair," but he takes no notice now. It's just, all he's interested really is what you're going to bring him, what food you're going to bring him.
He just says, "I don't like it here," and he
I want to
come home.
Tony is in a low security hospital run by a private care company. They say all his injuries were properly investigated and took place before they owned the hospital. They also say patients are not isolated, but those who need their own living space receive attention from dedicated staff and have access to common areas with other patients. Roy and Pam have been trying to get Tony moved to his own home with appropriate community care for years. When we first met, they've been told it might happen by Christmas.
Hopefully they're going to get this right, because me and Roy, we're too old to go through this again.
I think this is the end of the line.
This is the end of the line for me and Roy. We have been told he doesn't belong to us. He's not our son. He is not our son. I gave birth to him and we are parents, but it doesn't belong to us. He belongs to the state.
You feel powerless, that you can't do nothing. It's like Tony on the edge of a cliff and you can't get hold of him. He's there, but you can't get him. That's how it feels.
Tony and thousands like him are hidden out of sight and out of mind, often for years, in institutions known as Assessment and Treatment Units, or ATUs. They're designed for short-term care of people with a range of learning disabilities, and they're supposed to be discharged within 18 months. In fact, the average length of stay is 5.5 years, and the government is about to break its promise to close up to half of the beds by next March. There are currently 2,315 people in ATUs in England, just 80 fewer than there were in March 2015, when there were 2,395. 60% of them have been admitted for more than 2 years, and 16% for more than a decade. The number of reported cases of restraint has risen from 16,660 in 2016 to 28,880 last year. And Sky News has obtained figures that show 40 patients have died while admitted to an ATU since 2015, and 9 of the deceased were under 35. 4 years ago, Sir Stephen Bubb wrote a progress report on the bed closure programme. He was shocked by our figures and says the government has no excuse not to act.
There are deaths of people in these institutions, some of them unexplained. We know there are significant problems. There will be, at some stage, another scandal. And yet we know what we need to do. The idea that in the 21st century, you lock people up, you restrain them, prone restraint, you hold them down, I think is disgusting. It's barbaric, and it is unacceptable, and it needs to be made unlawful.
To see the difference that community care can make, we came to Norwich to visit a project run by and for people with a learning disability.
And make sure so they got the right support to keep out of hospital.
Everyone here has spent time in a secure hospital, but all are now in community care with greater control over their lives and finding their voices. Hayley spent more than 5 years in secure hospitals.
I felt institutionalised, so when I came out to live in the community, I was doing a lot of bad things to try and get myself back into hospital. Because I felt safe. That's where my safety net was. Having the right support, you can achieve anything, but it's got to be the right support for you, and that can take time. It can take time to get the right support.
Ricky now lives in his own flat and has just got married, but it has been a long road.
If I was given to the community and there'd have been good communication, the right support, I think I wouldn't have been in hospital as long as I did.
How long was it?
10 years.
How old are you?
30.
How do you feel about that now that you're living your own life outside hospital?
In a way, it makes me angry that no one helped me to get out earlier, but in a funny way, it's whatever therapies they've done with me and the medication they've given me now has improved my life.
The benefits of community care are obvious here, but one of the reasons people can get trapped in care is financial. If someone with a learning disability is in an assessment and treatment unit, the NHS ultimately picks up the bill. That can run to several £100,000 a year per person and often goes to a private provider. Once they move into the community, though, local authorities have to pay, and social care budgets are already under huge strain. Perversely, there can be a financial disincentive to moving people out of hospital and into their own home.
I'm a bit nervous, but I'm really pleased. All right, George? Yay, Georgie. Mummy's house. Okay? Oh, Georgie. Kiss, kiss. Oh, sweetie, shall we go inside? Go to Mummy's house, George?
George is just beginning that transition. This is the first time he's been to his mum's house in 18 months. Just 3 weeks earlier, he was discharged from a secure hospital.
3, 4, 5 people would jump on him and restrain him and then put him into seclusion. As far as George is concerned, as soon as you lay a hand on him, you're in his space. He doesn't like it. He's autistic, doesn't like being touched. He's got like an exclusion zone around him and they're straight in. He felt that he was being attacked, so he fought back.
He now lives nearby in his own home with 3 carers 24 hours a day.
I have a lot of confidence in the team. We have excellent communication. They're talking to me every single day, and I know I can talk to them every single day, which is really good. And it's all the details, exactly what George is about and who he is and what he enjoys and what he doesn't enjoy. Picking up all of the details all of the time, and it's constantly changing.
Feels calm.
Yeah. Yes, yeah. He's just living the life he's supposed to live, which is absolutely brilliant.
George has personal support from a dedicated team, but it is still on average 6 times cheaper to look after people at home than in a hospital.
It's about accepting and understanding that he's got a right to do whatever he wants to do, but at the same time, with the duty of care, you need to make sure that what he's doing is safe and he's allowed to live a fuller life as he can.
That was really quite uplifting. Nicola and George are the first people we've met since we started this who are smiling, and it's clear that with the right planning, the right committed staff and the right attitude, it is possible to provide decent care in the community. It's early days for George, but it seems to be working.
This is all his clothes that I've got all ready for Tony to move, which I thought was going to be moved, and he was going in about a fortnight. Looks like he's going to be there another year.
For Pam and Roy, the struggle goes on. They have just had bad news.
He thinks he's having a Christmas with a Christmas tree. You can imagine not having a Christmas. He hasn't had one in 21 years. No Christmas tree, no decorations. Where he is, all he's got is a bed, a telly and a chair. It's just another day.
They've been told Tony will not be leaving hospital after all. After a disagreement with Roy and Pam over his care plan, the care provider has withdrawn its offer of a home near Brighton. That means they'll still be taking the 200-mile round trip to visit him every week. Brighton and Hove City Council say they are sympathetic to Tony's situation, but his current accommodation is the closest to home that meets his needs. They say his situation is regularly independently reviewed and hope to move him to bespoke accommodation that keeps him and his carers safe as soon as possible. It is a complex process which can only proceed with the full confidence of Tony's parents, and the council say they're restarting the commissioning process with immediate effect. The Department of Health say they are committed to supporting people in the community and that restraint should only be used as a last resort. NHS England say there are 20% fewer people in ATUs than 3 years ago, and they're investing more than £75 million in moving patients into their own homes. Those promises feel like a distant hope to families torn apart by the care system.
I just feel we've lost him. He went away, well, he took him away, and he's gone. Big hole in our family. He's just somebody we talk about in a picture.